Hey everyone, we're going to be doing signups for the 2025 Dominions 6 tournament. And it's been a while in coming. Pretty excited to start this one. I think we've given enough time for most of the bugs to shake out of Dominion 6. I think the game is in a very playable form for multiplayer, although those are possibly famous last words. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the structure, some of the rules, and how this is going to work. First of all, I want to talk about who can join. Pretty much anybody can join. Last year, we had kind of a different structure where you needed to have won a multiplayer game in order to join. And then before that, we had like a Dreamers round. This year, we're going to ditch that entirely. And what we're going to do is we're going to have it where basically anybody can join. The things that you kind of do need, though, to join is you need to be able to spend 60 minutes a day, probably for the next like 2 to 4 months doing your turns. Most turns are not going to be that long. Normally, they're like 5 to 10 minutes, but sometimes they're long. And so having kind of being able to dedicate that amount of time is pretty important if you're going to actually finish one of these games. And if you start but can't finish, you're kind of doing everybody in the game a bit of a disservice. So that's probably the harshest criteria. And then the other thing is there's no real skill level requirement, but if you haven't played a multiplayer game before, please, please, please don't immediately quit when things aren't going well and you start losing. Because I think unlike a lot of other strategy games, if somebody just kind of like has a bad game or they're upset with their start position or they lose their starting army and they just die and like, quit or ask for a sub, that can kind of ruin the game for everyone. And it can maybe allow the player who isn't the best to advance out of that game, and that can mess up like further rounds in the tournament too. So anyway, it's really important that you play your position to the end. And if you need a sub, of course we can grant one to you. But yeah, anyway, that's kind of the main thing. The other thing I'll say too is go ahead and make sure you test your nation a few times. Like make sure you know how to expand. Like don't let this be the first time you're playing a nation. Once you have signed up and you've drafted a nation, like make sure you can play them and have some basic expansion where you can get 14 to 20 provinces in year one. So yeah, those I think are the sign up requirements. The other thing. Okay, now we'll talk a bit about how to actually sign up. I'm going to have a link in the description for this video to go to my Discord channel. In there, you will find if you scroll down a bit, there's Dominions channels, and then there's recruiting and game administration. You probably won't see that. But under current games, there's a section called the 2025 tournament. In there, there's an area where we have a vibrant discussion, and then we have a sign up thread. And in the sign up thread, you just need to react to this message with this elephant, and then it will give you a role where it will say that you have signed up. So I'll do it here. This is what happens when you sign up. You get a role, and so now you can see I have this role, a 2025 tournament player. You'll get a message from the bot saying that it successfully gave you the role. And yeah, that's basically how to sign up. Pretty easy. Once you do it though, come in here, post a message, say hi to everyone, say which community you're coming from and that, you're looking to sign up. So how this is going to work then is once you have signed up, we'll wait probably like 10 days before we start making any games. And then I'm going to get a list of everybody who's reacted to this. And I'm going to use that list, or basically everybody who has that role. And I'm going to use that list to start putting people randomly into games. Now, I also should mention at this point that you can only enter the tournament once. There's no multi-entering, right? So just enter with one account one time. But you can actually, if you get eliminated, this is a single elimination tournament. If you do get eliminated, you can get back in the tournament by subbing into a position. But you need to have been eliminated or effectively eliminated before you can sub into any games. So, or not be in the tournament to sub in. So yeah, that's basically how you get in. Now, after 10 days, I will pick, probably in conjunction with talking with some of the GMs and admins on my server, we'll pick how big the game is going to be, like basically the game structure, how many players we're having expecting to sign up. This is like a little table that I made with like different amounts of players. I'm sure we're going to get more than 100 people signing up. I think last year we had around 300 or 400, and I kind of expect we'll have more, though it will remain to be seen. I'm kind of expecting we'll get like 600 players-ish to sign up. But I'll talk through the ideal case, like what I think will happen. And from there, we can figure out kind of what the starting rounds are going to be. So these ideal cases, I think this is where we're going to land, somewhere in here. And basically, these will be 3-round games. So round 1 will be very small, kind of death match 6-player games. These are going to be really fun to play, and they're going to be like, you're going to probably see some crazy hyper aggressive builds. And these first round games are also going to be like 6 players, 6 thrones, and you probably need 5 thrones to win. So it's going to be, you basically have to kill everyone. And yeah, it's going to be, because like in smaller player games, it's usually easier to snowball. These will be very snowbally games. It's going to be very aggressive, I expect. And they'll probably be pretty quick. They won't last as long as like a normal long form game. So I think these are going to be really fun. Now we're thinking, if it is one of these scenarios, like if we have this many total players sign up, we'll probably have between like 81 or 117 games that we start with 6 players in it. That's a lot of games. So we'll be starting to host those probably 10 days from now. Then what would happen is the winner from each of those games would go into round 2. And then there would be, in this case, there would be 9 games with all of these players who won in the previous round. And there'll be like a total of 81 here, a total of 117 here. And yeah, so those players would win, and then the winners go on to the finals. So they've won now 2 games in a row. So these are pretty good players. And the finals, if you'll notice, it has more slots in the game than we have games down here. And I think the reason for that, well, not I think, the reason for that is we're going to seed in the previous winners. So we're going to have Arco from the first tournament, we're going to have Sai from the second tournament, and we'll have Maven or Hezekiah from the third tournament. If those players can't make it, some of them had Hydras, so their Hydra could take their slot. Those players also, I don't think we're going to let them join, because it would be kind of weird if they won through, like they can't take up 2 spots. So there's really no point to letting them join in the starting rounds, since we're seeding them into the final rounds. And I think having the previous players there will be pretty good. Now, I will reach out to each of them and see if they want the seed. If they don't want the seed, we might open up another spot, though we'll kind of be working through those details as we go. So some of these, there's a lot of like smoothing out that myself and some of the admins are going to have to do to make sure that like the math and the number of players in the games work out. But that's basically the idea. We're going to seed in previous tournament winners into the finals, so they don't need to sign up. But yeah, so yeah, here we have 9 players, even though we're going to have 12 players in the final game. And then in this case, we would have 16 games, and we'd be playing a 16-player game. So again, having 3 seeded slots for the people who won in the previous rounds. Now we have a lot of other configurations. I'm not going to go through them all, but like if we had over 1,000 people sign up, which I wouldn't expect, but if we did, we'd probably have 9 players per game in the first round, 9 players per game in the second round, and then we'd have 16 in the final round. And there's maybe a different configuration we could come up with here too. So it's not a guarantee we do one of these, but these are basically the configurations we're looking at. Now, if there's really few number of players, we'll only have 2 rounds. So this would probably be the smallest we would have for only 2 rounds, is if we do like 12 players and then in the first game, and then 16 players in the final game. So this is one of the configurations we might do. Now, the way this is going to work is I think I'd mentioned some of this before, but after about 10 days after I've done the announcement, once signups are starting to slow and I have an idea how many people we're going to get, I'll pick one of these, and then that will set the player cap. So like if we picked this one, we couldn't have more than 486 people sign up. Though we could have like a waiting list, because inevitably, as we organize the games, some players are going to basically drop out. So anyway, that's that. Now, one of the things is we probably will have, like, it's possible that, let's say we pick this number, 486, as the total player sign up. It might be that after the 10 days has passed and we're waiting for the final people to join, you know, we putter out early. We putter out at like 450 or something total players signing up. If that's the case, then I probably will pick an experienced player, maybe who got eliminated in a previous round in one of the games just that I know, and I'll seed them into the next round. So there will be a chance that various players get seeded into the final games just based off me knowing them and thinking they're pretty good. Though obviously we'll try to avoid that. We just probably will have to do some hand wavy things like that to make sure the game counts keep lining up. So that's basically that. Now, I was going to show you, there's a very high likelihood that we do a 6-player map for the first map, and I've gone ahead and designed it. And I'm going to go ahead and show that to you now. So this is one of them. So basically, this is a 6-player map. There's no east to west wraparound. So you can't wrap around this way, though there is north to south wraparound. And there's basically, if you look at it, there's like these kind of little pockety regions. And there'll basically be another start over here. There'll be a start here. And actually, I'll pause and I'll actually show you. Okay, so I've got the game set up now with 6 players in it. And basically, you can see there's these impassable mountain ranges here that are basically forming a lip beneath you. And there's no east-west wraparound, so these aren't connected. But basically, there's a very slow path to get down here to your southern neighbor, if you wanted to, or your northern neighbor. It's the same. But these are sort of disincentivizing having a northern or southern war. Instead, like the majority of the contestable territory is with your east and west neighbor, this way. So the idea is that you would probably tend to have more of like a 1v1 essentially over here against your eastern western neighbor, and then after that, the winners would fight each other. But there's no guarantees you need to play that way. You could, for example, fight your northern and your southern neighbor, or you could fight all your neighbors if you have like a really aggressive build. So there's a lot of different things you can do, but that's basically the idea. I'll put this map on the Steam Workshop. I won't have it on now because I do need to change some things, but I might put a sample of it, like this current version, in the Discord. But it will likely be changed before we actually start the tournament. But anyway, this is the idea of it. It's kind of interesting how this map got made. We made it in MapNuke and then ported it over to make it a D6M, so it actually uses like the Dominion sprites and stuff, which is kind of interesting. So yeah, this is probably the map. You can see how it would be very snowbally and very aggressive. So it should be a fun first round. And basically the idea in this first round match is we're going to find people who can fight. This map has much less to do with diplomacy than other maps. It's going to be very much, can you fight and win battles? So very exciting. Okay, so to summarize, if you want to play and you have the time to dedicate to do 1 turn a day for basically the next 2 to 4 months, go ahead and sign up. You sign up here in my Discord, you do the reaction, and then type some message saying hello to everybody. Though this part's not really required, but you should. And then in about 10 days, we'll start assigning people to games. I will let you know the structure in terms of like how many total participants we're expecting and what the number of games in each round is going to be. And as we're assigning people, you will get a ping from us when we start putting you inside a game. And from there, basically what's going to happen, I've got some rules here you can read in the tournament rules. We'll be posting the specific rules for the games once we start setting them up. But basically, on this small map, there's not going to be any pop kill and no underwater nation starts. Just you can't really have that in this like hyper aggressive 1v1 6-player map. So we're going to be banning all those. And then we probably won't have any bans further than that. So we're going to ban probably all pop kill, all underwater starts. And then we'll have a random draft order, and then that's the order in which you'll draft your nations, and it should be fun, guys. So we'll see you there. Take care.